I think a version of the movie could have been done 10 or 15 years ago, but not as sophisticatedly and at a greater cost, I imagine. There are things we can do now with visual effects that couldn't be done a long time ago, and ways we can combine physical human beings, organic creatures, with visual effects, extend things and manipulate things, and that's the real challenge here. We're not creating digital characters, and we're not blowing up many buildings. We're really enhancing physical human beings in a way, actual real creatures, real actors, real people.
You know, I really think the major responsibility of a visual effects supervisor is to help the director tell the story. Just like production designers and cinematographers, we have to work with the director to make sure that the story the director's trying to tell and the vision that's being conveyed in the movie is unified and works all together to support that. And I don't think most people think of visual effects supervisors as anything more than technicians. I mean, most people think of us as somebody who says, oh no, you can't do that because that's too bright or that's too dark or we'll never be able to put that together, you can't do that. And in fact, that's an important part of our job, and that part comes from experience. But the part that's critical to what we do is to be able to creatively come up with ideas for sequences that will tell the story. The object we're photographing today, we hope, shooting, is the interior of the torch of the Statue of Liberty after Magneto has installed his machine in the torch. And he's captured Rogue and placed her in the machine. We previously photographed Rogue in front of a blue screen, acting as if she's captured and held in the machine. And we're now about to shoot the machine starting to spin and tearing the skin of the torch apart in the process. So we built a miniature which is a little less than half scale of the real torch, and have a very large mechanism and heavily built hoops, we call them hoops, to tear through a tearaway effects rigged skin. And the skin that'll be behind the hoops will look like the interior of the skin that forms the torch on the Statue of Liberty. This will become the background plate to go behind Rogue, who was shot blue screen.
Roll camera. Okay. Action. Action. Roll camera. Hey, action. Cut. And play it back.
That was weird. I was picking up.
Check your lights.
What happened is one of the lamps got bumped and hit right on the shower head. But you still, I think you still have some.
All we need is.
We just have it.
Yeah, well, we're at 48 frames per minute.
That happened right. I mean, I have no idea how that happened.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's good. We're good.
We are using just about every technique there is available right now because that's the kind of film it is. It's about the X-Men. The X-Men all have different powers. Storm can control the weather. Cyclops has the beams he shoots from his eyes. Magneto can bend metal and contort things and fly because he can use his magnetic power to resist other metallic elements and raise himself in the air. You know, Logan / Wolverine has claws. Rogue can very subtly steal other people's powers or their life force. If she was to stick around touch them long enough, she could, they could die. And we're certainly using it all, and the list is pretty long, so I don't think I have to get into that. But I think we're taking an approach which is maybe unique these days in terms of telling a story when you're dealing with big action heroes. There are a number of times in the movie when Mystique transforms into other characters. And we're trying very hard here to not do a two-dimensional, for lack of a better term, morph. And many morphs, even when they're three-dimensional, look, it's not much different than a two-dimensional morph because you're simply taking one object which is two-dimensional on film and replacing it with another object which is two-dimensional on film. And you can do some strange shape shifts and things to try to give it a 3D feel, but generally, you know, it looks like a morph. A morph is a spatial transformation as opposed to a dissolve, the traditional film technique, which is a temporal transition, just happens over time. And morphs are spatial, in which two different shapes are brought into congruence so that one shape and the other shape fit together, and then the surface is changed. And it's traditionally done as a two-dimensional technique where you create essentially a mesh that fits over each of the different characters you're doing, and you bring the two meshes into alignment. Then when you animate the two meshes and they're pulling the image together, it looks like you're transitioning from one image to another, but it's only working on the filmed image. It's not working on the image in 3 dimensions. But what we had to do here with Mystique was create an effect, because she grows scales, because she really is Bobby, including his clothes, his wristwatch, his eyeglasses if he had eyeglasses. Whatever he's got on his body is created by Mystique. So, you know, unlike some other films where you may see her transform and she'd still be wearing his clothes, she creates the clothes as well. That's what she can do. So as he walks forward, he has to change in size and shape, in profile to us, and he also has to propagate scales, but these work in 3 dimensions. They come out on the sides of his arms, they come out in the foreground of his arms. So there's a 3D model which has to move in perfect sync with his model. And then his model has to be shape-shifted to match her model. These all have to be brought together. So it's truly, the work is truly being done in 3 dimensions. It's not just working on the filmed surface. We're creating these people in CG and then using the filmed elements to get us from point A to point B. But in this case, point B is fully CG. The only thing that's not CG at the end of this shot is the hallway.
This is our Mystique to Bobby transformation. And here's our database of Bobby. And this is prior to be putting into our track. So this is essentially the effect taking place, our 3D morph. And as we cycle through, only certain pieces of them transform and become Mystique. And as we cycle through, it slowly becomes, Bobby starts turning into Mystique. He starts getting different body shape. So this is our 3D database shaded. This is phase 1 of the effect where we do the actual shape shift. Phase 2 is when we get it into the track, and then we apply her scale animation to it, which is all 3D animated geometry. She has something like, I think we're close to about 8,000 scales on her body, and to animate all those scales at once would be a very time-consuming process. So using luminance values that we extract from these mattes, which become the texture maps, where it drives a cycle animation on the scales. So basically, as it's wiping down her body, it triggers the animation of the scales just flying out.
I'm a big fan of practical effects. CGI I think is cool, but I think if you use it as sparingly as possible and only when you need to. And I was, and they're like, well, but you wouldn't have had an optic blast if it wasn't for CGI. And I was like, I know, but but I think it looks cool. I think it was great. I think it was good that he could that there was a range to it. That that like it could be this concussive beam of force that could blow the roof off of a train station, and also be razor thin.
The beam has the force of a hugely powerful flow of water. It is not a laser beam. It doesn't blow things up by heat or any kind of incendiary action. It blows things up by the force of itself hitting them. It's like blasting somebody with a series of cannonballs. So in the train station, when he's in the train station, where we earlier did some video coverage of us blowing up the train station roof,
Oh, the suspense. What next?
Roll it.
Action!
Cut it, please.
Slow.
What?
It looked great, but it was slow. So this is the element that when he first opens his eyes, this is the element we're using to bring the colors of red and white and the feeling of heat and the feeling of forward propulsion out of his eyes. It's an element that looks like this. When the element hits the ceiling, when the beam hits the ceiling, it splashes, just like water would splash against the ceiling and spread sideways. So Teresa and Thad built some geometry to create an artificial ceiling, essentially, and then splash with particle animation. Get this kind of a shape, as if the beam is hitting the ceiling. Right here against black, it looks flat. When you see it against the ceiling, it feels more like it's heading in the direction it should go.
Particles are what a lot of people use to create procedural animation.
Yeah, natural phenomenon like falling water,
right.
Smoke,
dynamics of different sorts.
Fire sometimes. Dynamics that you can't get by actually creating a piece of geometry and warping or stretching or manipulating that geometry. So you identify essentially individual pixels which have a path, and they're definable by their velocity, by their mass, you can apply all kinds of attributes to the particles depending on the kind of effect you want.
Right. And in this one we've attached blobbies, they call them, which is basically, in this case, something that would look more liquidy, more molten and such, and so that when it hit, the particles are driving it to the shape of the room, but what's attached to each particle, which is just a location, would be a blobby, or basically a jelly ball, and they all glom together as they get close, and they'll separate as they spread apart. And again, just trying to push the idea of liquid.
The thing about Mike is he really clicked with Bryan on the fact that Mike's effects have always been seamless and real. And you can never tell what's an effect in a Mike Fink movie. And that was the number one concern for us coming in.
And he goes, and these claws go in slow motion. This will be the effect shot.
Right.
And then...
And we have a lot of shots where the actors are wearing these, which are Logan's claws, and they really have to be made to look the same. Gee, the lighting in here is not bad. And so it becomes the job of Thad and Joel Merritt here, and I don't know who else is on the claw crew, to both track the hands in 3 dimensions so that the claws don't look like that, That would be bad, you know, or that would be bad, you know, or even worse would be that, you know. So the claws have to look like they fit on the ends of the knuckles and stay there, stay put. And then they have to match the lighting. And quite a few of the cuts in this film, in this particular sequence, are practical claws intercut with the CG claws. So the lighting and the animation has to be absolutely precise. In this shot, there were practical blade tips already poking out of her back. And he had little stubby blades on here. And the shot was never originally meant to show the retraction. The retraction was going to be off screen. So what Teresa and Jamie and Thad and whoever else worked on this shot did, it's a real effort, was to remove the practical blade tips that stuck out of the back and replace them with these CG ones that retract, animate the blades retracting into Logan's fist here, and animate a displacement down Logan's arm so you felt that the blades are running through. If you see this on film, you can see this much more clearly. So as the blades retract, you see that displacement run down the arm, and you get a real sense of that motion back. Without seeing that on the arm, you almost don't see it move because of how it works. So it took quite a bit of back and forth to get that animation to work right and get the timing right, because his motion, he makes a little recoil motion, so you really know when you have to start the retraction. But as you can see, it's almost 2 beats. He goes, it's like 2 beats. So you have to make all of that work with Hugh's acting, and then of course light it and do all the things you have to do to make it look like it belongs in the scene. I love to be challenged on a film. I love the excitement of being presented with the, Mike, we need to shoot this, and how do we do it, and coming up with a way to shoot it, that works for the film. And this film certainly has its share of major challenges on a daily basis.